This is the City of Alstyne City Council Work Session meeting. We are meeting at the Independent Bank Meeting Room. This is Monday, July the 21st at 6:37. This meeting will please come to order. The item on the agenda is discussion regarding the 2014-2015 fiscal year City of Alstyne Enterprise Fund budget. I will turn this workshop over to Frank Baker.
All right, thank you, Mayor. All right, Mayor, Council, I believe everybody's received their packets. This is strictly enterprise fund tonight. We're working on water and sewer projects. Got an updated statement of revenue if anybody had any questions as far as where we are. The first sheets after the agenda items were your water sheets, and I'll just walk through all the sheets right quick in case you had any questions on just what was what, and then we'll dive into whatever your questions are. 701, of course, is water fund. 705, and that's the first two sheets after the agenda. The next two sheets after the agenda are the wastewater fund, and then the fifth sheet after the wastewater fund is the combined funds. So if you want to look at the over and under, because all the money goes into one trough, even though they're two separate departments. And so that continues for three sheets. And then what's consistently a question annually is what's in contract services line item, and so that's your breakout of what we've identified for contract services for 701, 6703 on the water side. Billy, can you hear me, sir?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And 705 is your contract services on the wastewater side. After that is the rate sheet, and we'll pull that up here in just a minute after we go through the line items. And this is what our current rate structure is on the top end, and then we have the proposed rate structure on the bottom, and we'll dive off in that on what's variable and what affects the rate in what way or fashion besides our line items and what we hope to achieve in fiscal year 15. After that, after the rate sheet is the 2015 proposed utility rates, because on the rate sheet itself, it directly correlates what it's going to cost the residential customer with a 5/8 or 3/4 inch rate. This is what it's going to cost a customer for the applicable size meter rate at the base rate without any consumption. And that's in parentheses right after water base rate and sewer base rate. Next is the master utility ordinance, number 771, which was adopted mid-year this year. Once the utility rate was modified, states the hoops that we're going to jump through above and beyond the local government code for adopting and implementing a new rate structure for fiscal year 15. And of course, that's something that the administration will have oversight on to make sure that we meet those requirements. And next to last page is utility bill comparison. This is important as far as where do we fall, where are we in comparison and competitiveness to cities of our size and cities that we compete with directly and indirectly. So on the far left is the gallonage. Starting out the top is water, and then you have your 3/4 inch meter. Your rate for 5,000 gallons, your rate of 10,000 gallons, and 20,000 gallons. And then we have the cities that we believe are applicable and that we're competing with. Of course, we have the proposed new rate going across the top, going horizontally. We've got the proposed Van Alstyne rate, which is 25 cents higher in each column on the rate sheet to all the other cities. Then we have the current Van Alstyne rate. We have Anna's. We have Salinas, which is over in the Platinum Corridor. We have Melissa's, and remember, Ann and Melissa have similar debt to us. They don't have similar population, but they have similar debt to us in relation to waterline, being part of the CGMA waterline, take or pay issues, everything of that nature. So we're a direct competitor with them. Sherman is an orange because they take water directly from Texoma. They they don't have to pay North Texas Water District or anything like that. They have so many acre feet in Texoma Lake, and they have a higher population. So Texoma is going to be in orange. Gunner is going to be in orange in the comparison because they strictly take groundwater right now. They don't have any surface water capability, nor are they really looking at doing any large expansions to their system for proposed development and expansion on the city system. Howe is a direct competitor. Howe has a smaller population but has similar debt structure and has similar issues to us. So Howe's a direct competitor. And of course, then we've got the big ones, McKinney, Frisco, and Gainesville that are in the area that we do compete with development-wise, but of course they're the big fish. They have the larger population. They're going to win out in development discussions and infrastructure issues. But we wanted to make sure that y'all had an idea of what some of the other larger cities that people may be moving from to our community, what they were paying in relation to their rates, because we have had people in this past year that have come out that have said, well, I lived in Frisco and I never paid that much. So you actually have the ability to look at what they were paying for their rate for their average consumption. And of course they may move to a bigger piece of property, they may be able to afford a bigger piece of property or a bigger home or something, so you don't necessarily know if they're consuming now what they're consuming the same rate of water at their past residence. And then the last one is South Grayson water supply. Of course, all South Grayson supplies is water. And so that's the only comparison that we're going to be able to give you as far as South Grayson. We are competitive in the 10,000 to 20,000 gallon range. Of course, in the 5,000 gallon range, they don't put their risk on their primary customers, they put their risk on their above and beyond customers, which is interesting. What's going to be most applicable and going to weigh the greatest in your decision as far as us remaining competitive is the bottom bracket coming across. It says total utility bill in the middle of the bottom bracket, and that is the combined bill for water and sewer at the 5,000 gallon range, the 10,000 gallon range, and the 20,000 gallon range. And so if you compare us to Anna, Salina, Melissa, and Howe, and I do say Salina even though they are on the Platinum Corridor, and we are in direct competition with them for some homeowners that don't necessarily have to live over in that area. But that's where we are competitively. Van Alstyne's proposed rate will be lower than all of those, except, let's see, yes, significantly lower than Howe. And that's where I believe that the population discussion bears the most weight as far as they have less population, similar debt structure. Of course, they have the higher rate because they don't have as many people to spread it out to, as well as industry or manufacturing. And then your last page is your city department codes. It probably should have been in the front end, but it's to help reference when you're looking at your revenue expenditure report. Of course, it does say what account it is, but it's just kind of help give you an index as far as where you're looking and where you're going. So that's to let you know what sheets where. I'm sure y'all have had an opportunity to skim it, look at it, dive into it. I'm willing to start discussing and answering your questions for us to start looking at where we're headed. If you want to talk about where we are in the proposed rate and what we're looking at and what we think is applicable, and of course we're not going for that full 7% increase in the base rate. We're looking at what do we need, not where do we want to go as far as charging, what the citizen can bear or what they can't bear. We specifically structured it to where we tried to have an applicable rate increase in all columns. So that way, that's why we just did the 25%. Of course, if you remember back, and I know you weren't there, sir, and I know generally you probably caught portions of it, in the water rate structure that Philip Gibbons presented us last year. I tell you, go ahead and pull it up, Jennifer, and then we'll go back to other questions as we have it. We can dive back into line item questions if anybody has any. But overall, the things that we can modify besides line items in the rate structure that Philip Gibbons presented us last year are the applicable brackets for consumption. Of course, anything we do in consumption is going to directly affect the base rate if we don't modify our expenditures. So it has it built into the spreadsheet to where it's going to mess with that. Go ahead and scroll up. I'm sorry. So this is the old structure, just like it is on your sheet, or the current structure as it is on your sheet. Here's the proposed structure. And Billy, we're looking at the water rate sheet. Can you hear me, sir?
Yeah.
Okay. If you get lost, let me know and I'll tell you where we are. So go ahead and scroll up, Jennifer. So what we can modify and what we are able to adjust, besides again adjusting the line items, if y'all have questions about line items, is the number of lots for this next year, number of impact fees, and it says it right over here, impact fees for how many lots do we believe are coming into the city of Van Alstyne, and we'll need to discuss that, and tap fees. Last year it was a direct, and this current fiscal year it was 45 and 45, and Steve will discuss why that number is different from the 45 and 45 here in just a minute, as opposed to being a 50 and a 10. What is also, besides the top numbers we can modify, is the depreciation value. And anybody who's in the auditor's report, if you recall that she recommended over 200,000 in depreciation or reserve, whatever you want to call it. We're currently we're on target to hit that number, depending on if this polar vortex number 2 comes in or not, because part of our rate is based on outside consumption over an average of 3 years. But the depreciation value we can take and adjust if y'all don't feel like 4% increase, and the increases we're looking at, and the 25% increase is applicable. If y'all want to modify the depreciation, we're certainly able to do that. And we're also able to modify the impact fees and the tap fees. And Steve, if you want to discuss what we're talking about as far as why it's not 50 impact fees and 50 tap fees, what you're trying to achieve this next year.
What I'm trying to do is, my crew's so small, we're so limited what we can do and what we can't do. When they come in and do a house, they may do 5, 6 houses at one time and expect the tap fees to come up right then. So what we're proposing with Lynn and them looking it up into the subdivision regulations is they'll do the installation of the tap, install the meter, we come and do an inspection on it, and so we're not so much tied up in the construction stage of it. So it frees us up to do the older part of town and still maintain the integrity of the system. We will propose an inspection fee to go and verify they have installed it according to our requirements and use the type of equipment that we require.
So as far as an inspection fee, we don't have that information tonight?
Not yet.
Okay.
That's on a side-by-side basis. They're going to submit their construction contracts to us, and we'll review them, and then the ordinance requires a 3% inspection fee for that. So so that'll be coming in, and then so the balance of how much inspection Steve does and how much inspection that he wants. We've got a professional retired construction inspector and street superintendent on a part-time basis that will supplement and really do most of the inspection on the new Georgetown Meadows number 2 when it comes in.
Okay.
So
What they'll actually inspect is actually that as they put it in the streets, they'll look at the base, they'll look at the compression strength of the concrete, they look at the rebar. We don't have, my crew don't have time, nor the expertise. Now, there's some things I could probably do, but I don't have time. So that's the reason we're looking at it this way. Actually save us time and stay where we need to be.
But the inspections would be the same number as 50, but y'all came up with 10 because that's going to be applicable to going and doing the inspection as opposed to setting up the whole tap entirely.
and the 10 would be tap fees that Steve might actually do in the old town if, like, Mr. Cooley comes in.
Right.
So these are kind of separate from the new lots that are getting built. They're
We have some developers now starting to buy old lots, moving houses off and moving new houses in, and we're subdividing it. So the 10 would actually be that part the area that would actually have the tap fees involved.
Okay.
Before we start playing with the rate sheet, or if you want to make any modifications, has anybody got any questions off the line items in the water or wastewater portion of the proposal?
The only question I had on the, I meant to get to before the meeting.
Yes, sir.
We have the comparison of all the rates. Do we have a comparison of the base rate?
It's in there.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
With, I mean, with all the city?
This here's your base rate on a 3/4 inch meter. So this is the residential meter, and this is your comparison of the base rate coming all the way across with the different
That's
cities
it.
in South Grayson.
Okay.
So that's the base rate, excuse me, right there. And where that correlates into the rate sheet is 3532 right here on water, and 2735 is what we're proposing.
Yeah, there's a,
Yes, sir.
okay. I just saw the 3/4 inch. I didn't know if that was an average or if that was a,
That's
okay,
right.
but that's the actual base rate.
Yes, sir.
From the city.
And if you notice, what we're trying to accomplish this year, this does have the water line loop loan in there from Texas Water Development Board. It has an engineering phase and the beginning and the construction phase. Remember, that's in two separate parts, and that's something that, depending on how we end up, that's something that I'd like to bring to y'all in August for adoption. And that's why we're trying to get the ball rolling right now on the enterprise fund side, because we want to go after those projects while the interest rates are still low and get started on them, because we do have the potential for Mantua development, Driscoll Hill, which is right there off County Line Road, just south of what Artisan Development. Let's do 133 lots south of the elementary in current Georgetown Meadows. So as Mantua, Holt, Caterpillar, and so the loop that we had presented back in May was coming across County Line Road, and then where Cartwright is supposed to come into County Line, going straight up that and connecting right over here by Landmark Bank, the Baptist Church property, as well as the South Grayson College. And creating that loop, that way we will grid out on the interior, we'll open up more property for development for water and sewer access, and it'll promise, it will. And so that's in the water structure. Steve has reduced some of his costs on the water side, if you noticed, but that's still, we have a reduction on the water side. What we're proposing from the 3877 to 3532, but on the sewer side, we're going for the full loan on the sewer side through Texas Water Development Board, and that's at 6,000 feet of PVC that's going to be pipe burst from the current concrete sewer line that's going from 3133 at the industrial park all the way south to 121 where towards the sewer plant. And since pipe bursting doesn't need all the engineering as much engineering on the front end because it's got existing pipe, we'll pull the full loan, because as soon as we pull the trigger, they'll start moving forward on that project. So that's why the sewer loan is fully loaded. That's why we have more cost incurred this year on the sewer loan as opposed to the water, because the water will be a two-step process with the engineering and then construction.
Frank, they don't understand, we're going to raise increase the size of the pipe
On the sewer side.
on the sewer side. I think it's 18 inches.
15 or 18. I mean, 15 will get by, but we're looking at what other.
Right now we're at 12, and what you do is you look at the feel of the pipe. We're over halfway, so any increase in volume we have there is reducing our capacity. And also on the connection of the pipeline from on to Cartwright, also reduces the chance of we having to have an elevated tire sooner than what we would need it, and it gives us more water storage.
Plus, we're making a connection to the CGMA line, so now we'll be able to implement that surface water into the system. So we've got basically 60 million gallons a year is what your take or pay number is, that we can start supplementing the well. You know, if Steve keeps having wells go out, we're going to have a water crisis pretty quick, and this will supplement this brings the CGMA water into the system with all the.
So if we did the CGMA water line coming up in here, then our wells become a backup to that?
It becomes an operation. We're going to be working with Steve on modeling, the right balance for that, because you want to, yeah, we've got to blend it, and you've got to get the chemicals right with it, but you also want to balance you want to maximize, because right now you're paying $160,000 a year for water that you take zero for.
Right.
And next year, and next year you're going to get hit with that same fee. We want to start taking it, but we don't want to necessarily increase above what your take or pay is. We want to balance that out so that you optimize that water that you're already paying for without having to go get more water.
That balance is potentially possible to do in that case.
Yes. With the system and the pumping system and the SCADA system that we're proposing with that design, the whole idea is that we operate it and, here, what we see right now, and this is preliminary and schematic at best, but is that like I said, 60 million gallons a year is your take or pay number, or your take or pay volume. So and you're doing about 120. So it's about 50% of your, so we're going to go through with that, and then when we peak off the wells is what we're thinking we're going to do. But that may change, and if it does change as a philosophy, we'll definitely share it with you.
And the benefit of it too is that even though the plan is not to take more water, if something does happen, more water is available. And it will be able to be taken. In other words, you won't run out of water. If you had a problem with a well, or maybe even a couple of wells on a bad day for it, you'd at least be able to move more water into your system and deliver water to customers.
Before we go on, can we back up just a little bit? I have a question on this utility bill comparison. From several that I've talked to of all the towns there, the one that eventually is going to pay is Gunner. Because
Who?
Gunner, the city of Gunner. Because we're moving west. They are on a highway trying for growth also. And coming into Grayson County, and their rate is quite how competitive, how large are they?
I guess they're 2,200. I mean, that's what I believe the last census was. I mean, that's a good
But
question.
they are trying for a lot of growth.
Well, I mean, they're not planning for it. I mean, they don't have any surface water to take from them. They don't have any plans as far as increasing any wells or anything like that. So they really don't have any debt structure compared to us. So they're able,
Hurricane and Gracie.
yeah, so.
Yeah, they
So
have
this is all got to come to them.
yes, they have a lagoon system for their sewer system. So, and they just basically throw it out, kind of like Alstyne was 15, 20 years ago, where they don't have the new plants. So they're going to be under TCEQ requirements to upgrade pretty quickly. So they're relatively low right now in the sewer rates because they're just doing the bare minimum.
But they are going to have to.
They're going to have, they're going to have to incur that.
And
Those requirements, yes.
Any growth would impact them just the same way it's impacting Alstyne. They would have to accommodate that with new infrastructure.
Well, you've already calculated your treatment.
We're in better shape.
Yes.
Yeah.
Looking online, and I don't know if this answers the question in part or anything, but they have about half the population that we do. At least in their 2012 census, they had a little over 1,500.
Okay, all right. Very good.
But the reason their sewer rates are so low is they're still on 1950s, 60s technology. And Van Alstyne upgraded to about 10 or 15 years ago, I'm guessing, based on the age of the plant. They got out of that technology and got into the 20th century and now into the 21st century. So
They also know the growth is coming.
yes, they do.
They're just not planning appropriately.
Or they're not ready. If it hits all of a sudden, then it's going to be tough on them. Yes.
All like most towns have to planning on that growth. I mean,
Did anybody have any, on the first couple of sheets, 701, 705 sheets, does anybody have any questions as far as line items and as far as history and where we may have made modifications or anything that was out of the ordinary?
just one question about salaries on both sides, 701 and 705. I know that Steve is already shorthanded, and then I also know that there's been a little bit of turnover.
Yes, sir.
But I was wondering about the drop in the proposed salaries for 2015 versus 2014.
What we had done was Steve had lost his crew leader that had the most certifications, and he was being paid towards the top of the scale. He'd been a long-term employee, left, went to a smaller community, and so for for Steve to start building up on those competencies, those certifications, it's not a good idea. I mean, he has brought in one person from Anna that has some certifications, but again, that person doesn't need to be brought in at top salary. So that's where Steve's savings are, is in him building from within, succession planning, and able to have similar personnel, but he's going to have to put them through a training program. He's going to have to build them from within, and so I believe that's why he did an increase. We talked about it. I thought he did an increase in training on.
Probably so.
We did, but we also spread it between both departments.
We did.
We did bring in two people. Both of them had experience. One had 10 years of maintenance experience. He came from south of Houston. His wife moved to McKinney. He came in, looked for a job, and I was thrilled to get him because he's a good hand. I mean, he's well experienced.
So what we ended up doing, if you look down, even on the 701 sheet, you'll have it's the second sheet for 701 on the expenditure side. We have 701 on education and training, 6721, and we budgeted 2,500 for this current year. We increased that to 3,000. And then also on travel expense, because a lot of those classes, some of them are presented here locally, and some of them we have to send personnel, we have to out of town, and they have to stay overnight. We increased that expenditure from 2,000 to 2,500 on the water side, and because we are going to have to train more people, we're going to have to build up their certifications and their competency, because we have personnel that have experience and they have knowledge, but the thing about it is we've got to sandwich that with current. Well, we've got to get them up on training, so that way they're utilizing their effort and they're putting it to good use instead of maybe doing something not necessarily incorrectly, but something that may not be as efficient or as safe as they could be doing it if we send them to training and they gain advanced certifications and knowledge. Plus, if we're going to be a growing organization, we would prefer to try and promote from within and empower the people that we have in the city to be the new leaders as the organization grows, as opposed to bringing in people from the outside and may or may not be a good fit. We run the risk of lawsuits. We run the risk of time for Steve to invest in people, just like all of our directors, for outside people that they may be making a move because Van Alstyne's the right place to be and they want their kids to go to school here or whatever, or they may be moving over here because they're not working out where they are. So if you look like on 705, well, 705 on the sewer side, travel expense, we kept it the same because Steve had only used 340.28 in the actual. He is sending 2 people, I think, to class next month, so that is going to increase. But we didn't believe that he necessarily needed an increase in travel on the sewer side for education, and then the education training is directly below it. And so we kept it at 2002 because the majority of the education that Steve put into the guys this last year was on the water side. Because we do have oversight out at the sewer plant. If you remember, 3 years ago, GTUA came in and we had the turnover of the plant operator as well as the public works director. And so we didn't have anybody with any certifications. We had people with some competency, but they didn't have the certifications to operate our plant. Brought GTUA in. GTUA did oversight and it's costing us over $60,000 a year. If you look at the GTUA, what we pay out, it's in contract services. It's on your contract services sheet. I believe it's $27,000. So since Steve has come in and empowered his personnel to gain knowledge as well as exposing them to the operations of the plant and rotating them in and out, we've been able to drop that oversight those oversight costs, as we hope to do, to 27,000, from 60 grand to 27,000. And so, Steve's found us a significant savings there.
Also, TCEQ requires any of us working on sewer or water, we have to be licensed. We can bring them in, once they get past their deed, they have 2 years to actually step up. We have to, right now, without any other growth, all I have to have is 2 Cs on water and 2 Cs on wastewater. Now, I have, on the wastewater side, I have the highest you can go, and I'm trying to do the same thing on the water. Now, if we do come to a point, we're going to have Bs instead of Cs, so I'm trying to get guys to move progressively that way.
And if you go to your contract services sheet, 705, 6703, 1, 2, 3, 4, the fifth thing down is GTUA, that's Greater Texas Utility Authority. And WWTP is wastewater treatment plant management services. It's 27,000 is what we have budgeted for this next year. They're also who's assisted us with the Texas Water Development Board loans for as well as engineering for the water line and sewer line. What else do you have, sir?
Well, that's it.
Okay. Robert, what are you thinking?
Right.
Yes, sir.
I have a couple of questions, and I'm not sure whether you've covered this or not. I've been, sometimes I hear good, sometimes I can't.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Under 701, revenues, the debit, the credit clearing, and the debit proceeds. What are those?
Okay, credit clearing is going to be the what the citizens were what the customers were paid back for the water refund.
Yeah, and the number should actually be negative. It should be.
And it's yes.
Positive.
Okay. And what was the other one?
But those show up as revenues. Why would they?
Because there wasn't because it was revenues in, we didn't have an expenditure side of that. It's a contra.
Exactly.
There you go. In an accountant's term, it's a contra revenue. It didn't make a whole lot of sense to me either, but Jennifer did it applicably, and it's shown as a negative. If you go to your revenue and expenditure sheet, it'll show it as a negative. On your budget sheet, the projected actual, that's not correct. That's where the computer kind of takes you on a trip. And it may or may not be applicable as far as how you're going to end your year in. And so you've